Okay, I have to say got it.
Dun, dun, dun. Welcome everybody. Just to double check, if you can hear us and see us, please type llama really quickly in the chat. My name is Noelia. I will be your host today, and with me is lovely Kate. I am so excited for her demo. But before I let her introduce herself and tell us what we're doing today, I just want to quickly remind you that this is a 30-minute video, and it's a demonstration of what Kate can do to give you a heads up about her mini workshop that is coming up in November, but we'll tell you more about it as we move along. I will be dropping some important links in the chat, so keep your eye on it. Part of it will be the link for her upcoming mini workshop, but also our feedback survey, because we really enjoy hearing from you to keep bringing you content that you enjoy. Other than that, this is your opportunity to ask questions and pick at Kate's brain, try to understand what she's doing. So if you have any questions, please type them in the chat. If you would kindly type question in all caps followed by your question type normally, that just helps me make sure I'm not missing any questions, and we'll try to answer as many questions as we can today within the time that we have. And other than that, thank you all for joining us. Kate, tell us a little bit about yourself and what are we doing today?
Okay, thanks, Amalia. So yeah, I'm Kate Kos and I'm a professional artist. I've been working full-time as an artist for the last 6 or even 7 years. I've been painting much longer, and I've been selling my work longer, but it took some time to kind of, decide this is what I want to do. So for today, what we do is this small gouache painting. This is just something very simple, something I can really easily explain and also quickly paint. My adventure with gouache started not very long time ago. Like, I was used to use it just for sketches and nothing else. And last year, actually in the summer, I started using it a little bit in my plein air painting. I do paint a lot of plein air, and I realized it's just such a great medium for outdoors, because say watercolor is, you're always dependent on the weather. If it's very damp, like I live in Ireland, so it can be very wet and the paper doesn't dry properly. And then with acrylics, they do dry too quickly. I don't paint with oils. And then I just thought, gouache, it just seems to be so good because it dries quickly. I can rework colors. I never had any tuition, so I noticed I do use them a little bit, maybe different, but then in the end, we all artists come up to the same conclusion. It's all about color, value, and shape, really.
Awesome. So today, when painting this waterscape, we're focusing on colors?
Yes, we'll kind of mix, simple colors. So basically, we always think sea is just blue and the wave is white. But there's all sorts of colors in there, and I try to kind of show you, how to quickly mix them and how to kind of achieve that.
Awesome. Let's get going then. I'll spotlight your workstation.
Brilliant. Okay, so I have my piece of paper. So yeah, this is the artwork we'll be kind of trying to paint. So this is my small piece of paper, and I always start by covering the page with very light wash. Okay, sometimes it kind of then slows me down because I'm kind of waiting for it to dry. So I'm using here Bengal Rose. It's any red where you would do. And I'm going to add a tiny bit of yellow. So just by adding a tiny bit of yellow, I'm just going to warm up that color. Okay, so kind of like an orangey. I'm just going to quickly cover half of that page with this pink. You can see in this artwork, it's actually showing up a little bit in place. You can see that there was an under layer, and the next thing I'll do is switch into blue color, because it's just going to be quicker and easier when I already have some of blue applied there. Okay, so even if it mixes in, doesn't matter. Just going to quickly cover this all up. So I don't do any sketches for smaller work because it just takes time. This is just primary blue, a little bit of water. So I just dip my brush in the water. This one is watercolor brush. This is the only time I'm going to be using it, and I'm going to switch to my synthetic brushes.
Okay.
Sometimes, so controlling your water on your brush is very important. So you sort of want there's just some hair in my so you want to start with a wet brush, but then you don't want to keep it too wet. You don't want your washes really very watery, because it is gouache, it's a different medium, and I like to keep it sort of a bit more like acrylic, so it's quite opaque. You can probably see that there's parts of it that are still wet, but there are parts of it that are already drying out. So I can use this time to sort of start laying up other colors. Okay, so if we maybe start with some horizon. Okay, so there's always a darker line at the horizon. That's what I noticed. So I'm going to use Ultramarine Blue and tiny bit of raw sienna, just to get this really dark kind of a little bit turquoise color, and a little bit more white into it, so it just becomes more opaque. Okay, if you use just some transparent colors on their own, it'd be very hard to cover what's underneath. And that's the whole idea of keeping some color first, so I'm using them in an opaque way. So I'm just gonna start with horizon.
And quick question about the brushes you're using. You said you're using synthetic brushes, but do you use gouache specific?
This is actually the set, etcher set, and these are gouache specifics. But really, I have used, I find like watercolor brushes that don't work for me. But any kind of synthetic brushes don't have to be very expensive. Anything that's even meant for acrylic, I think works. So lots of my brushes here would be sort of, and they don't last very long. They're very inexpensive, they're very cheap, but then I switch them quicker. I try to keep them as long as I can, and then get into fresher ones. But quite happy with the set I got from Metro. But I'm still trying them, I guess, so they have a little bit of, they're soft, but then they have a little bit of spring in them, so it's quite easy to pick up paint. Gouache can be very sticky, and when you paint with it, so yeah, this is, so far so good.
Good. I'm glad you're liking them so far. It always takes, I think, like
Yeah,
several paintings for you to really understand the brushes.
That's true. And I started bringing the whole set outdoors, but because we're kind of going into the sort of cold season, I paint less and less outdoors, and kind of, haven't had that many chances to try them.
Right.
So what I did next is I mixed a little bit more ultramarine blue and some white, and you probably could see me. I kept kind of making sure that color is okay, so I keep mixing until I'm kind of happy with it, how it looks. So it's much brighter than the water at the horizon, and I kind of spread out a bit further. Okay, and so I can leave that for now. Obviously I don't have to paint everything in one layer. Sometimes you can go back and kind of improve it and add things to it. Okay, the next thing we're just gonna mark where our kind of highlighted sort of, this is the color of the wave when the sun is hitting it from the back on the front, and it's kind of, a bit of transparent, it kind of seems green. So I'm using for that raw sienna. I'm gonna mix some primary blue into it, a tiny bit of it. So mostly it's raw sienna and a little bit of blue. I'm using primary blue for this one. And I add a tiny bit of white, so it's opaque. We can go back in and just, this is our base layer, so we can go back and cover if we need to bit more. And if I mix that mixture with the one I had previously, I'm gonna get even a different shade of sort of greenish color. You can use it here for on the other side of the wave. So I'll keep going and dipping into my brush with a little bit of water, so it has a little bit of, so it's easier to pick up, and there's a little bit of wetness on it. Okay, so now we kind of have the horizon and we have a bit of sea. So all we need is really the reflection of the wave and the kind of, crushing foam itself. Okay, so we're going to start with white. I'm going to start in here in the corner. So I'm just grabbing a bit of white and adding blue. And because my blue, it feels very warm. So depending on the brand you have, this is Ultramarine Blue, it always feels too warm. Adding a little bit of red. And any red, really red, any good red, it would be transparent one. So say like cadmium red is an opaque color. And then quinacridone red, this one is Bengal rose. These are transparent colors. You can find that information on the paint when you buy them. There'll be a little bit of info if this is a transparent color or opaque.
It would say it on the paint tube, I'm assuming.
On a paint tube or on the, if you have a set, you know, so say rose sienna here is, you know, I don't know what it means, but for me it's opaque. So you probably can, so you see that little square that's visible. So depending on the brand, so say this is Winsor & Newton, they probably have a difference. So this is a semi-transparent sign, so it's kind of square. So it's good to kind of know when you're buying a paint which one is going to be, but nothing beats a bit of experience and just trying it out. So this is really buy one color and try it and see if it suits you.
Right. A lot of experimentation and trial and error, I guess.
Doesn't matter how many descriptions and YouTube videos you watch, it's all down to you know, experimentation. Okay, so what I did here, I don't know if that's visible. I might move my light a little bit. Okay, so this is like a lighter shade of blue, and then they all have blue and red in it, and then I went into much darker. So it's like I already have two different colors for the wave itself. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is kind of start working a bit more detail on the wave here, and I'm just adding. I'm always using the mixture I have already, because that kind of forces me to keep everything in balance instead of starting with new colors. I can use already what I have here, but also kind of, you know, you're not wasting that much if you're not, you know, wiping it off and starting over. So I'm kind of trying to mix a little bit better color. I think it needs a little more white. I'm going to add a tiny bit of primary yellow so it's warmer. Going over here. And I'm going to add loads of white, so on top of it even lighter, a tiny bit of blue. I'm trying to pick as low as I can. Well, that seems about right. Notice all the time I'm kind of using a medium brush. So starting with like a bigger brush to do all the washes, and now I'm kind of switched to medium, and I stick with it as long as I can. And eventually the time comes that I can't do as much detail as I can and have to switch for a bigger one, but I try to keep it as long as I can.
Why is that? Why do you try to keep it?
Because it forces you to think big shapes and big batches of color rather than detail. Okay, so detail is like a last thing you should think about. So build it up with blocks of color, and then when you switch to smaller brush as well, like you kind of work loads of little things. It takes more time. So this is like a foundations of color that and when done right, you know, the painting will look okay. Okay, the next thing I want to get rid of that color in the sky, and this is like a simple sky. There's not many clouds in it, so I'm just to simplify it, I just added white into the color I have here, and notice I'm just mixing with everything. I'm gonna get this nice grayish blue, and I usually kind of whatever comes out is good. Sometimes I need to add more white, and if it's like too yellowy, or I add more blue. But I'm trying to kind of use whatever I've used already. This guy. You can see how the gouache applies now in a thicker way, and underneath we have lighter pink. It was applied as a watercolor, I guess. Delicious. So I'm running out of color I can add. sometimes I decide then if I have a really nice color underneath, say we could do like a lovely evening clouds, really lovely pink. So let's leave some and see what happens.
Do you normally do that when you're painting? Let's leave some and see what happens.
Well, if something I like, I've learned to kind of, sometimes the first brush strokes you do are better than the ones you do last. So if you if you can stop yourself from covering them and decide, yeah, this is it, that's good, and not always that happens. So many times I just cover something I liked and then it's too late. Okay, now I'm gonna look for some color underneath those waves. It's gonna be definitely the darkest in here. So I don't want any white kind of going into it. So I'm gonna just tidy up a little bit of space on my palette. And now I can go in and start my dark color. So I'm gonna use ultramarine, whatever red you have. This one's Bengal Rose and my raw Sienna. I'm gonna have really dark blue. Can use it in places. I don't want to just do like one line. The shadow would be there everywhere, but we'll have a different shade depending what it is. And if I do it like one straight line, it's gonna look a bit maybe fake. So I'm gonna mix different color for the rest of it, and it's sort of maybe a bit fresher. So if I want fresher color, I'm using more transparent colors, transparent pigment. So this one is primary yellow, and it is transparent color, and the other yellow I have here is raw sienna and it's opaque. So I switched to the transparent one, so I can do maybe needs more blue, even more. So it's like a trial and error. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But until you make the first mark, you don't know.
Right. I notice your brushstrokes vary a little bit. Is there what's the thought process behind how you are applying the paint?
The brush stroke, yeah, I guess, the quickest I can do it. So say sometimes if I'm covering a bigger part, say like the sky, I would just use the flatness of the brush just to cover it very quickly. But then I needed smaller strokes. I don't want to change my brush to the smaller one. So I'm just using the side of it. So the variety of strokes, I find is very important. If you keep it too samey, it's just kind of boring, I guess. So you want to sort of, try to sort of make a mark like this, and then another one maybe smaller with the corner. So I find myself twisting my hand in different ways. That forces me, those brush strokes kind of have different angle. But then like at times, say in this painting when I was doing reflections, and I'll keep it the same, so it kind of looks, simplifies everything. Okay, let's add some kind of bluish color for the reflections here of the wave. So the kind of the water is receding, and it reflects what's in it. I'm gonna add some red into it, so I have nice kind of cool blue. I can just keep going quite a lot here. If I add a little bit of yellow to it, I'm gonna have a different color variety of brush strokes. How are we doing for time?
We have about 10 minutes left, if that's okay.
Very good, yeah, I'll try my best. And so I'll mix some more white and more red into it. So I want to have nice kind of reflections in here, and a bit of different color. I can still layer up differently, but I want to have some base underneath. It's like a base color. So I mixed whatever I had here, and I just added more blue and a bit of yellow, make it more gray looking. Yeah, I want to leave some kind of color showing through, because other than that, what would be the point to applying it in the first place? Okay, now so the main thing we are missing is the kind of the white sort of roof rough colors on top. So I'm going to switch to my smaller brush now and see what the smallest I have here is this one. So I see maybe that could be too small, but we'll start with it. And I want to add some details in white, but I don't like using white on its own, so I'm going to add a tiny bit of yellow, and I'm talking really with the corner of my brush, tiny bit, and mixing into it to make it a little bit warmer. So your white is the coolest color on your palette, so you want to sort of warm it up before using it, unless you're going for that effect.
Right.
Cool. Yeah. So I want to go ahead, I want to kind of break up that horizon line. So I'm just going quite high with my wave, leaving some dots here and there. Okay, so this is just white with a little bit of yellow mixed in. Okay, so this is like a first go. And then I can just do the same sort of like a dotty kind of brush strokes, but with different colors. So some of these will be hitting the sun and we're getting the most of a color. Some of it will be in shade. So I'm just mixing in some primary blue, ultramarine blue and some red. Nice. But this one I think is a little bit too dark, so more white. I think I can do a little bit of, so I think this color is too clean and the purple, so I'm going to mix a little bit of the what I call dirt. So whatever's here, just gonna, it's helping me to make this color less vibrant.
Right.
Nice little quick trick.
I'm assuming that also helps you make sure all the new colors you are creating are harmonized with the rest.
That's right, yeah. So yeah, I picked very limited palette for today, just because because you can do it. But if I have my palette outdoors, there's all the colors, and eventually you sort of forget and you just grab what's there, what's easy to grab. Sometimes what's clean on your palette I grab first, because the other colors I might be in, the way I tend to sort of infect them with other colors, contaminate those colors. So I won't be very careful. I'm not washing my brush every time I'm doing it. So then what happens, the cleanest well with the cleanest color is there, I tend to just pick. And sometimes, having it limited like this, it forces you to harmonize it better, because you're not mixing up too much. So it's just the easiest way to harmonize colors is to use as little as you can get away with. So here I have warm and cool blue, just red. This red is cool, warm and cool yellow and white, and with that color combination can do quite a lot. In certain subjects you'll be probably missing a red, warm red, but not in this one. So already started looking a little bit like a wave. I'm just trying to cover here all that lighter parts that's maybe picking up from the background.
Because it's more of the shadow of the wave.
Yeah, it's underneath, so it's not getting any light. That's foam on top of it. It's covering up here. So it's going to be less. And then I want to work a little bit on the color here, on that kind of. I think it needs to be fresher, that wave here. So I'm just using my cool red primary. Cool yellow primary. And just keep adding white until I know it's kind of what I want. So it's a little bit fresher than what I have. I'll change.
And what you're doing mainly with the small brush is little stamps and short strokes, isn't it?
That's right, yeah, small little. So the base color is, most of it is covered what I want it to be. So it's kind of, it's already there. So what I'm really doing is just adding a bit of interest, a little bit detail, and you know, there where you want to add your fresh colors and fresh little marks. I find this one maybe needs to be a bit more yellowy, so I'm going back and trying to mix the color I need. So mixing my two yellows for that. I think that might be good. And I can just cover. You know, that's what's great about gouache, that can just cover anything that you had underneath, as long as you using it in an opaque way. So as long as you are using very little water, big colors, of course. So I'm going to add some kind of white on top of this wave as well. So actually, there's a little bit of dirt in here, and it's going to come handy now because I don't want it to be too strong and not as strong as our main focal wave. I feel my horizon is a little bit messy, so I'm just going to tidy it up. I have this color here already, I can utilize it and just tidy it up because it's dry now, so it's going to be easier.
So you'll just layer on the paint and not necessarily reactivate the ones on underneath.
Yeah, so just basically, yeah, putting it on top. But yeah, if I was going for maybe more blended, so I could just use water like I'm using now and sort of, you know, reactivate it and sort of blend it that way. That's fine too. Whatever, you know, I live close to the sea, so I get to look at this a lot, and you see all sorts of colors depending on the time of day you're there and depending on the weather.
Right.
And I find, you know, I love when the horizon is sort of sharp, but there's also, you know, it's lovely when it's kind of, you know, blends in soft with the rest. What I'm using now is I'm adding some white and a tiny bit of yellow just to show reflections of that wave in the water, in the kind of receding water, you know, coming back. So it's going to be reflecting everything, but because it's moving, it's not going to be very smooth. It's not like a mirror. It sort of just picks up a color here and there. That's what I'm trying to do. Getting some darker color now. So if I kind of put that in here, I can see that's not making anything because it's just too close to the color I had underneath. So I'm actually going to add more white to it, so actually it's different. So I want all sorts of shades of blue showing there. And of course that green would reflect in it as well. So I can use the green I already have here and just reactivate it with a bit of water on the brush. So just adding a bit of action. Maybe it needs to be a tiny bit darker. But sometimes it's hard to judge because with gouache, because it dries out into dark color. But then not always, like lighter colors will dry out into darker, and then darker tends to dry out into lighter ones.
So do you ever dry your painting quicker, or do you wait till it's dry and then come back to it and make adjustments if needed?
Yeah, well, I tend to work with hairdryer a lot because I'm very impatient and I just kind of want to get straight into it. So yeah, so hairdryer is always at hand in my studio. But then I've learned when you're outside and you're working outside, you don't have that tool with you. So you kind of have to wait. So I've learned to kind of work with one part of the painting and then kind of move on to the next one and then come back to this one. So say, you know, this is now dry. I can see what color is going to be finally here, so I can add some other colors to make those maybe clouds look like clouds, because you know it's kind of touch dry now. But then, like as I said, with gouache, it's such a grateful medium that you don't really have to wait for it to be totally dry. So I'm using my ultramarine and a bit of red, but I'm mixing that yellow, and I want to use a little bit more red than that. So what I'm looking is some kind of color that would make these clouds look okay. That's too dark. Just make sense of these. Even more what. So basically I'm just putting some marks, and I think, oh, this is too dark. Come back in more white until I'm happy. I'm trying to leave as much pink as I can, but then make some sort of sense. So I wash my brush so I can add more white to it. So the color on the brush that wasn't mixing in. And let me go even lighter. Okay. Can do some kind of clouds in the distance. See what happens. We can always cover it.
That's true.
Okay.
So you're now going in with a slightly cleaner brush to smooth out that cloud, or is that what you
Well,
did?
yeah, that's what I kind of decided. Yeah, so it needs to sort of have a little. So just with the water on your brush, you can just smooth it out. My water is getting really dirty now at this stage, but it's okay as well. So we'll see what happens. Maybe I decide it needs to be covered, you know, in the end. Also, this shape doesn't work because it's just too random. So I can just smooth it out. Okay.
We have a quick question from the chat. Vivian is asking, is it better to blend colors when still wet or after it dries?
Well, it's better when it's wet, because what happens when you kind of try to blend them when they're dry, you sometimes get a little bit of outline. You know, when it's already dry, you reactivated the paint, and kind of, so you sometimes might get a little bit of sort of like like an old stain kind of look. So yeah, it's better to do it when it's white, when it's still fresh, when it's still wet and fresh. But yeah, it's you know, so I find better than reactivating the color. Maybe it's better to just start over and mix another color and cover it, than reactivating, because of that.
Mm-hmm.
It also depends what surface you're working on. Like watercolor paper is quite good. Well, many times I work on illustration board or mounting board, depending what I have. So, and they wouldn't be as, you know, they tend to leave bad marks when you reactivate the paint. I'm adding kind of pinkish color into reflection just to add some interest. And yeah.
So is this what you do towards the final stages of your painting? Add little marks that will add interest?
Yeah, so yeah, I judge it at the end. I tend to add too much color, and then I have to my tendency, you know, too much color, so then I have to go in and kind of balance it. So yeah, for most of the paintings at the end, I kind of find, oh, it needs a bit more neutral, it needs more gray. But yeah, this one maybe didn't go that crazy. That's great with a seascape that, you know, you only have so much to go with. But say if I was painting flowers, you know, you can go all the way.
Right.
I'm going to show you some of the sketches I did in my sketchbook, just to show you what I have. So these would be very quick as well. And this is
Wow.
you can see this was actually, you know, painted from, I was painting from a photo. So the kind of clouds you see at the seascape. I'll show you. There's some kind of pinky. I can see that sort of a drop. I don't know if it's that visible, but there was a drop of water after I finished the sketch. I can see what I mean with this showing. There's two other ones as well.
Wow. Those are beautiful.
So, you know, just basically sketches that you try to capture the color of the sea more than the detail of it. You know, obviously there is some detail in the water, but this would be very last sort of addition, you know, make it feel but yeah, as I said, I live close to the sea, and it's nice to be able to sort of, you know, compare those colors after. all these sketches.
Yeah.
Mm.
Um, since you started showing that, do you mind if I ask you about the mini workshop and what you'll be painting then?
Yeah, so I'm gonna show you the artwork I have here. So this is like a continuation, I guess, of the painting we're doing now. I don't know if it shows all of it, but it's kind of more complex scene with, you can see there's more color in the sky. I'm not sure it's showing. So, and it shows a little bit more of clouds and sea. There's also these comes in place, but trying to work on the color of the whole scene, and so it feels like it has unity and balance.
Awesome. So, in the mini workshop, you'll still be teaching about seascapes, but then also how to use colors appropriately for a
Yeah,
seascape.
and just use the whole sky and use a little bit more of it, I guess. And yeah, so yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Well, I am very excited and we're running out of time. So, do you mind if I ask you a few questions before we wrap up?
Not at all. Yeah, go ahead.
Awesome. Do you mind if I switch it to the grid view so that we can see you as you respond?
Of course, yeah.
Perfect. Okie dokie. So, Sarah is asking, does the type of brushstroke influence or add the movement of the water? To
Oh
the
yeah, it
movement of the
does.
water that you're painting, sorry.
Yeah, but also it does to any painting. So that's not only for seascapes. Even if you're painting something that's still and you want to add a little bit of movement, if you want to add a bit of interest, using your brush in different ways. Always kind of. So what I find, like forcing my hand to go in different angles, always creates different brush strokes. So I'm not really thinking about it when I'm painting because I got into a habit of doing it, kind of like approaching. And so, yeah, I find it adds movement. Yeah, definitely.
And the more you practice it, it comes out
Yeah,
natural,
it
I'm
comes
assuming.
out. Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Awesome. And our last question for today. In watercolor, you typically get a hard edge like a bloom occasionally, right? Depending on how you're working. So Pieta is asking, is gouache like that?
No, no, I guess, you'd use it more in opaque way. So I guess, what I was saying, this would be the bloom, what I was saying, if you reactivate the paint, but that's, I guess it's just so easy to cover color that you very rarely reactivate. Also, the watercolor bloom, it comes in many times as a mistake because you went back in with too much water on your brush, and it's more water than the previous wash, and it pushes out the pigment out. That water pushes it out, and you create a cauliflower effect. But you can't really do that in a gouache. No, it's just gonna settle nicely in.
Because you're not watering down the paint that much with gouache?
Yeah, but even if you do it, it's just the way it's just a little bit of opaque, so it just always sits down rather than pushes. It doesn't push the paint out.
Well, I learned something new today too.
There you go.
Thank you so much, Kate. This was really fun. Your painting looks lovely. We have a comment, two comments that came in saying, I love the contrast in your paintings and I love the bold graphic style.
Oh, thanks very much.
Yeah. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you all who joined us today. I will drop one more time the link to Kate's mini workshop so that you can support her, but also learn more about her tips and tricks and how to apply them to a waterscape specifically, but that doesn't mean you can later apply them to other gouache paintings.
Oh,
And I will also be dropping the link to our feedback survey because that really helps us really know how we're doing and continue to bring you content that you enjoy and artists that you enjoy. If you followed along today or decide to give this a go later, please show us on social media if you're comfortable. Share your artwork, tag us with hashtag #EtcherStudio. And you can also join our Facebook group. So I will be dropping the link to that. But our Facebook group, we call it our Llama family. And you can get feedback from different artists and other members of the group.
brilliant.
And with that being said, thank you again, Kate.
Thanks
It
for
was
having me.
yeah. And we will see you all in future mini workshops and future live demos.
Thanks. Bye.